A homeless girl knocks on the door of a mansion. When the billionaire's daughter answers, she's stunned to hear, "My dad lives in this house." Marie straightened the picture frame on the living room table. The photo of her grandmother smiled at her, as if approving of how her granddaughter was caring for the old two-story house she had inherited just over a year ago. At 25, Marie had gotten used to living in what was now her house, even though she shared the space with her father whenever he wasn't away on business. After a tiring day at the accounting firm where she worked, Marie followed her usual routine. She made some tea, picked up a book, and settled into her favorite armchair in the living room. Her father, Thomas, was on yet another of his long business trips, which meant at least 2 weeks of solitude. Outside, the rain fell relentlessly, creating the perfect soundtrack for a quiet evening at home. The sound of the doorbell startled her. She wasn't expecting any visitors, especially in that downpour. She glanced at the clock. It was past 7 in the evening. Who would come by at this hour? When she opened the door, Marie was met by a little girl. She looked about 6 years old, soaking wet from head to toe, her blonde hair plastered to her rain-drenched face. "Can I help you?" Marie asked, confused by the presence of a young child all alone at that hour. The girl looked at Marie with wide, blue eyes and simply said, "My dad lives in this house." Marie blinked a few times, trying to process what she had just heard. The girl's father, in her house. The only other person who lived there besides herself was her father, Thomas, and he definitely didn't have another daughter. "I think you're mistaken, sweetie. The only man who lives here is my dad, and he has just one daughter, me." "But my mom said my dad lives here," the little girl insisted, her voice firm despite her trembling body. Marie felt a flash of irritation. It must be some kind of prank. Maybe the neighborhood kids had dared the girl to knock on the door of the woman who's living here alone for now. "Look, I don't know who sent you, but this isn't funny. My dad's traveling right now and he doesn't have another daughter. You should go back home before your parents start to worry." The girl didn't move. "My name is Lily," she said, as if that explained everything. Marie looked around, searching for some hidden adult who might be laughing at the prank. But the street was deserted under the torrential rain. "Lily, whoever sent you here, this isn't funny. It's raining, and it's dangerous for you to stay out here alone. Where are your parents?" "My mom is sick, and my dad lives here," the girl repeated stubbornly. Marie's patience ran out. She was tired. The rain was soaking the doormat, and this joke had gone on long enough. "Listen, my father does live here, yes, but he's traveling. And he doesn't have another daughter besides me. He never has. Now please, go home." Lily's face showed confusion, but before she could say anything more, Marie shut the door. Through the wood, she heard the small footsteps slowly moving away. She returned to her armchair, but she could no longer focus on her book. The image of that drenched little girl kept coming back to her mind. What if it wasn't a prank? What if the child was truly lost? Or worse, what if there was any truth in what she'd said? Marie shook her head. Impossible. She knew her father well. Thomas Laurent was a serious man, devoted to his family, even if his career kept him traveling for weeks at a time. Her mother had passed away when Marie was still a teen, but their marriage had always seemed solid. There was never any indication that her father had... No, it was too absurd to consider. She tried returning to her book, but the words seemed to swim on the page. She eventually gave up on reading and turned on the television, hoping the noise would drown out her uneasy thoughts. Later in bed, Marie tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The rain continued outside, and she couldn't stop thinking about the little girl. Was she all right? Had she found her way home? "It was just a childish prank," Marie murmured to the dark ceiling. Some irresponsible adult probably thought it would be hilarious to send a kid to scare the woman staying alone while her dad is away. But then why did she feel so bad? Why couldn't she stop picturing those serious, bright blue eyes? Marie pulled the blanket up to her chin. Tomorrow, everything would seem clearer. Tomorrow, in the light of day, This strange incident would just be a peculiar story to tell at work. Yet as sleep finally claimed her, Marie couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected visit had stirred something deep within her, something that perhaps should have remained dormant, and a small voice in the back of her mind kept asking if she truly knew her father as well as she believed. Marie woke up to the first rays of sun filtering through her bedroom window. She had slept poorly, plagued by confusing dreams of a blonde girl chasing her through endless hallways. She sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed her eyes. The rain had finally stopped, and a new day was beginning. During breakfast, Marie tried to push aside thoughts of the strange visit from the night before. It was Monday, and plenty of work awaited her at the office. She dressed quickly, grabbed her purse, and opened the front door. And there she was again. Lily, the little girl from the previous night, stood in the exact same spot, as if she had never left. This time, however, she was dry and neatly dressed, wearing a school uniform and carrying a small backpack. Her blue eyes looked at Marie with the same determination as before. "Good morning," Lily said politely. "I came to see my dad." Marie froze for an instant. She wasn't prepared for this. She'd hoped the incident the night before was an isolated event, something to forget in the daylight. But now the girl was back, more determined than ever. "Lily, right. Look, I explained last night. My father is traveling, and he doesn't have another daughter besides me. But my mum said—" "Your mum must be mistaken," Marie interrupted, trying to remain calm. "Where is she? Maybe I can talk to her and clear this up." Lily's face tightened slightly. "My mom's in the hospital. She's very sick." Marie felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. Irritation gave way to concern. A 6-year-old child with a mother in the hospital, searching for a father who apparently didn't exist. There was more to this story. "I'm so sorry to hear that," Marie said, softening her voice. "Who's taking care of you while your mom's hospitalized?" "My Aunt Sophia, but she works a lot. She dropped me off at school today, but I left early to come here." Marie looked at her watch. It was only 8:30 in the morning. "Aren't you supposed to be in school right now?" Lily looked away. "I really wanted to find my dad. My mom always said he lived here." Marie hesitated. On one hand, her common sense told her she should send the girl back to school. On the other, there was something about this determined child that intrigued her deeply. "Do you want to come in for a bit?" Marie heard herself asking. "We can talk more inside." Lily's face lit up with a smile. Marie opened the door wider, letting the girl in. She called her office, making up an excuse about not feeling well. It was the first time in 2 years she'd missed work, but the situation was exceptional. In the kitchen, Marie prepared a glass of milk and some cookies, watching as Lily looked around with curiosity. The girl seemed especially interested in the family photos scattered around the house. "So, Lily," Marie began, setting the snack on the table, "why do you think my father is also your father?" Lily bit into a cookie before answering. "My mom always talked about him. She said he lived in this house. She promised that one day she would introduce me to him, but now she's too sick to bring me here." Marie felt a chill down her spine. Could it be possible that her father— No, it couldn't be true. Thomas Laurent was a man of integrity, always present despite his trips. "My dad has only been living here for 5 years, ever since my grandmother passed away and we inherited the house," Marie explained, trying to find a flaw in Lily's story. Lily shrugged. "I don't know. My mom just said he lived here." "What's your mom's name?" "Claire. Claire Dubois." The name meant nothing to Marie. She'd never heard her father mention a Claire, but that didn't prove anything. Her father was always reserved about his personal life. While Lily ate, Marie studied her features closely. Was there anything familiar about her? The blue eyes were different from Marie's, which were brown like her mother's. But her father did have blue eyes, and the determined way she furrowed her brow when concentrating. It reminded Marie of her father when he worked through a difficult problem. "Do you go to school every day?" Marie asked, trying to gather more information. "Yes, I'm in 1st grade. My teacher is Miss Bernard. She's nice." "And your aunt? What's she like?" Aunt Sophia is my mom's sister. She's been living with us since Mom got sick. Before that, she lived in Chicago. Marie kept asking questions about Lily's life, her routine, her friends, her likes. The girl answered naturally, but whenever Marie tried to circle back to her father, Lily became vague, repeating only that her mum had said he lived in that house. When did your mum get sick? A few months ago. She started by coughing a lot. Then she got really tired. Now she stays in the hospital most of the time. Lily's expression grew somber, and Marie felt a wave of compassion. Whatever the truth behind this story, one thing was clear. The girl was suffering from her mother's illness and desperately seeking some connection with a father she believed existed. Did your mom ever show you a picture of your dad? Marie tried once more. Lily shook her head. She said she'd show me when she introduced me to him, but now she's too weak. After a while, Marie realized she wasn't getting any more relevant information. She glanced at the clock, nearly noon. Shouldn't you go back to school? Your aunt might be worried. She only picks me up at 3, Lily said casually. Can I stay a little longer? I think it's better if you don't. I don't want you to get in trouble, Marie said, though part of her wanted to keep the girl around, to continue investigating. Lily looked disappointed but did not argue. At the door, she turned with one last hopeful glance. When does your dad come back from his trip? Marie hesitated. Thomas was due back next week. In a few days. I'll come back tomorrow, Lily announced with the same determination she had shown before. And I'll keep coming back until I can meet him. Before Marie could respond, Lily walked out the door and down the steps. Marie stood watching as the small figure disappeared down the sidewalk, lost in thought. Back in the living room, she sank into her favorite armchair, her mind whirling. What if Lily's story were true? What if her father had another relationship, another family she knew nothing about? It seemed absurd. But at the same time, Marie opened her laptop and pulled up a search engine. She typed Claire Dubois along with the name of their city, but the results were too generic. She tried pairing it with hospital and other keywords without success. After a while, she nearly called her father, but stopped. What would she say? Hi, Dad, a little girl showed up here claiming she's your daughter. She needed more information before confronting him. Marie spent the rest of the day feeling uneasy, torn between skepticism and doubt. Part of her wanted to believe it was all a misunderstanding, that Lily was confused or had been misled, but another part, one that grew stronger each hour, couldn't ignore the coincidences and the child's conviction. That night, before going to sleep, Marie made a decision. She would investigate further. She would try to find out who Claire Dubois was, visit the hospital, maybe even talk to Aunt Sophia. She needed to know the truth, not just for her own peace of mind, but for Lily as well. That determined little girl had stirred something in Marie, sparking a mixture of curiosity and compassion she couldn't ignore. If Lily truly was searching for her father, and if there was any chance, and no matter how small, that Thomas Laurent was that father, Marie had to find out. With that resolve, she finally fell asleep, promising herself she would begin her investigation the next day in earnest. Marie couldn't get Lily out of her mind for the rest of the week. True to her word, the girl returned the following day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Each visit was brief. Marie didn't want Lily to miss too much school, but it was enough to fuel her curiosity and her doubts. During one of these visits, Marie decided it was time to investigate further. As soon as Lily left, Marie headed up to the attic, a place she had avoided since her grandmother's death. Boxes and boxes of family memories, old documents, and photographs were stored there, any of which might contain a clue about her father's past. Dust motes danced in the thin beams of sunlight coming through the attic window. Marie sneezed as she opened the first box, labeled Thomas Documents. Inside, she found diplomas, work certificates, and business files, nothing revealing. The second box held family albums, photos of her father as a young man, of his marriage to Marie's mother, and of Marie's own birth. Marie spent hours examining each photo, each document, searching for any trace of a Claire Dubois or anything suggesting her father led a parallel life, but she found nothing conclusive. Thomas Laurent appeared to be exactly who Marie had always believed him to be: a dedicated family man, a loving father, a faithful husband. But then, why was Lily so convinced? What had Claire told her? The next day, when Lily appeared again, Marie was ready with new questions. "Lily, did your mum ever tell you how she met my dad?" The girl bit her lip thoughtfully. She said they worked together, that he was really smart and kind. They worked together? Where? At some company. I think it had something to do with medicines. Marie felt a chill. Her father had worked at a major pharmaceutical company for many years before becoming an independent consultant. That part at least matched. Did they date for a long time? Lily shrugged. "I don't know. Mom doesn't talk about it much. She just said he didn't know about me, and that they would introduce me to him when the time was right." Each new piece of information felt like a puzzle piece falling into place. Marie found herself torn between loyalty to the father she loved and compassion for this child who seemed genuinely convinced Thomas was her dad. After days of fruitless research, Marie decided to seek help. Juliette Moreau, the family's longtime housekeeper, had worked for her grandmother for decades and continued assisting even after Marie and her father moved in. If anyone knew the family's secrets, it was Juliette. Marie found her in a small retirement home on the outskirts of the city. Juliette, now nearly 80, still held the upright posture and attentive gaze she always had, though her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea. "What a pleasant surprise to see you, Miss Marie," Juliette said with a warm smile. "How is your father? Still traveling a lot?" "Yes, he's fine. Actually, he's away on business now." Marie hesitated, unsure how to approach the subject. She decided to be direct. "Juliette, I need to ask you something delicate. Do you recall my father ever mentioning anyone named Claire Dubois, maybe about 7 years ago?" The teacup in Juliette's hand shook and spilling a little tea. The smile froze on her face. "Claire Dubois? No, I don't remember anyone by that name." But there was something in her tone, a slight tremor, that alerted Marie. Juliette knew something. "Are you sure? She might have worked with my father at the pharmaceutical company. Perhaps he brought her by the house once." Juliette carefully set her cup down on the table. "Your father was always very private about his colleagues, miss. He rarely brought anyone to the house. Juliette, please, it's important. A little girl, about 6 years old, has been showing up at our door, claiming my father is her father. Her mother is this Claire, and apparently she's very sick. I need to know if there's any possibility." Juliette's expression changed, a mixture of surprise and what looked like fear. "A little girl? My goodness." She stood up suddenly. "Pardon me, but I'm feeling a bit tired. Maybe we can continue this conversation another day." Marie knew she was being dismissed, but she couldn't let it go. "Juliette, you know something, don't you? Please, tell me." The elderly woman hesitated, her eyes avoiding Marie's. "It's not my place to discuss your father's personal life, miss. Some things are best left alone. But what if there's a child involved? A child who might be my sister?" Juliette seemed genuinely distressed. "Ask your father, Marie. That's all I can say." On the drive back home, Marie felt even more confused and intrigued. Juliette's reaction had practically confirmed that something was wrong, that there was more to her father's story than she ever knew. She began mentally reviewing past events, small inconsistencies in her father's stories. Like the times about 6 years ago, when he disappeared for almost a week, claiming there was an emergency conference in Seattle. At the time, Marie hadn't questioned it, but now. And those calls he always took in private, lowering his voice. How uncomfortable he seemed passing certain parts of town. Arriving home, Marie felt a sudden impulse. She went to her father's study and began rummaging through his drawers. She wasn't proud of it, but she needed answers. Most of what she found was expected. Work documents, invoices, normal correspondence. But then, at the very back of a drawer, behind an old file folder, she found a small box. Inside were receipts, movie tickets, an expensive pen with an inscription, "Forever C," and a hotel receipt. The Grand View Hotel, one of the city's most luxurious, dated June, nearly 7 years ago. Marie did some quick math. If Lily was 6 years old now and pregnancy lasts 9 months, the timing lined up perfectly. At the bottom of the box, she found one of her father's old planners. Most entries were about meetings and flights, but on one page, written lightly in pencil and nearly erased, was a phone number with no name. With trembling hands, Marie dialed the number on her cell phone. After several rings, an automated voicemail picked up. "You've reached Claire. I can't answer right now, but please leave a message and I'll get back to you." Marie quickly hung up, her heart pounding. That voice, it was soft, melodic, with a slight accent she couldn't place. Claire, Lily's mother. Her father had kept Claire's number all this time. That evening, when her father called with his usual check-in while traveling, Marie tried probing subtly. "How are things at home?" Thomas asked, as he always did. "Fine. Actually, something strange happened. A little girl showed up here asking for you." A silence on the other end of the line, much too long to be natural. "A child? Must be some mistake," Thomas finally said, his voice oddly controlled. "She said you're her dad. Her name is Lily." Another silence, even longer this time. "Dad? Are you there?" "Yes, I'm here." How absurd, right? Must be some kind of confusion, or maybe a bad joke. But something in his voice sounded off, a nervousness Marie had never heard before. She mentioned her mother, someone named Claire Dubois. "Do you know anyone by that name?" "Claire Dubois?" "No, I don't recall anyone with that name." "Look, Marie, I'm about to go into a meeting. Can we talk about this when I get back?" And he hung up before she could reply. Marie stared at the phone, a sense of dizziness washing over her. Her father was lying. She was sure of it now. The way he dodged the subject, how his voice changed at the mention of Claire. He was definitely hiding something. In the days that followed, Marie intensified her search. She combed through the entire house, checking every corner, every drawer, every closet. She found more receipts from the Grand View Hotel, all carefully tucked away in various places. A pattern emerged. Her father had visited that hotel regularly for almost a year, always on the dates that coincided with his supposed work trips. Lily's visits continued, and with each new interaction, Marie's suspicions grew stronger. The girl knew details about Thomas's preferences and habits that would be hard to fake. She knew he loved lemon pie, that he had a strawberry allergy, that he collected antique watches. Small details, but too specific to be coincidences. Marie also started noticing physical similarities she hadn't seen before. The shape of Lily's eyes was unmistakably like her father's, and that little head tilt whenever she was confused. Thomas did the exact same thing. Memories of her own childhood took on new meaning. Those periods when her father was strangely absent, even when physically present. The whispered arguments between her father and mother, back when her mother was still alive. The mysterious phone calls he took in private. The truth was there, hidden in plain sight, and Marie could no longer ignore it. By Friday, she made a decision. She would go to the Grand View Hotel. If her father spent so much time there, perhaps someone remembered him. Maybe there were records, something concrete that could confirm or deny Lily's claims once and for all. Marie took the most recent receipt she had found and put it in her purse. She'd go the next morning. She was nervous, afraid of what she might discover, but determined. If Thomas Laurent really was Lily's father, the girl deserved to know, and Marie needed the truth, however painful it might be. That night, looking up at the starry sky from her bedroom window, Marie felt she was on the brink of something important, a revelation that would forever change her understanding of her own family. She was about to uncover a secret her father had kept for years, and she had no idea what she would find. But one thing was clear: there was no turning back. The truth, whatever it was, needed to come out, for her, for Lily, and maybe in some way for Thomas himself. The next morning, Marie drove to the Grandview Hotel with her stomach in knots. The imposing building, with its Art Deco facade and flags waving gently in the morning breeze, looked even more intimidating now that she was there on such a personal mission. She clutched the old receipt between her fingers before slipping it into her coat pocket and walking toward the entrance. A uniformed doorman opened the door with a polite smile, and she stepped into the luxurious lobby. Crystal chandeliers, elegant furniture, and a discreet scent of fresh flowers created an atmosphere of refined exclusivity. She approached the reception desk, trying to appear casual. "Good morning." The receptionist greeted her with a professional smile. "How may I help you?" "Good morning. I'm actually looking for information about some past reservations," Marie said, her voice a bit lower than she intended. "It's a personal matter." The woman kept her smile, but Marie noticed her eyes cool slightly. "I'm sorry, but our privacy policy does not allow us to share guests' information." Marie had anticipated this response. "I understand, but the person in question is my father, Thomas Laurent." As she mentioned the name, Marie watched closely for any sign of recognition on the receptionist's face, but the woman remained impassive. "Even so, I cannot help you without the explicit authorization of the guest in question," the receptionist replied with polite firmness. Marie tried another angle. "Is there someone who's worked here for a long time? Maybe someone who could at least confirm whether my father actually stayed here?" The receptionist hesitated, then discreetly glanced toward an elderly gentleman arranging some keys at the concierge desk. "Mr. Girard has been with the hotel for almost 40 years, she said quietly. "He might be willing to speak with you, but I can't guarantee he'll share any details." Marie thanked her and approached the man in question. He appeared to be in his 70s, with completely white hair and a posture that spoke of decades of impeccable service. "Mr. Girard, may I speak with you for a moment?" He adjusted his reading glasses and looked at her with keen eyes. "Yes, miss. My name is Marie Laurent. I'm trying to find information about my father, Thomas Laurent. He used to stay here about 7 years ago." Marie showed him the receipt. Her father's name was clearly visible, as was the date, June 17th, 7 years ago. Mr. Girard's face lit up with a discreet flash of recognition. "Ah, Mr. Laurent. Yes, I remember him." Marie's heart sped up. "You do?" "Certainly. He was a distinguished gentleman. Tall, well-dressed, always very polite." The concierge offered a small smile. "It's rare to forget a guest who frequents the hotel so regularly." "Regularly?" Marie repeated, her stomach turning cold. "Mr. Girard seemed to realize he might have said too much because his smile faded. "Well, he stayed with us quite often, if I recall correctly." "How often, exactly?" The man cleared his throat. "Uncomfortable. It wouldn't be appropriate to discuss the specifics of our guests' visits, miss." Marie leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "Please, Mr. Girard. It's very important. I recently discovered my father might have another family, a daughter I didn't know about, and this little girl showed up at my door, looking for him." Something in her tone or her expression must have moved the elderly concierge, because his gaze softened. "I understand your situation, miss. I can't provide specific details, but..." He looked around to make sure no one else was listening. "Your father always reserved the same room whenever he came here, room 528. "Always the same room?" Marie frowned. "Yes, he was very particular about that. If room 528 wasn't available, he'd rather change the date of his visit." Marie absorbed this information, puzzled by her father's insistence on a specific room. "Did he come alone?" Mr. Girard straightened his tie, visibly uncomfortable. "Miss Laurent, there are limits to what I can share, even given your circumstances." "Please," Marie insisted. If there's a child involved, the concierge sighed. Your father usually arrived alone. As for any company he had during his stay, it wouldn't be ethical for me to comment. Marie nodded, understanding the unspoken message. Is there something special about room 528? It's one of our suites with a view of the interior garden. Very quiet, very private. Guests who value discretion often prefer it. Discretion. The word lingered between them, loaded with meaning. Would it be possible to see the room? Mr. Girard shook his head. I'm sorry, miss. It's currently occupied, and even if it weren't, hotel policy prohibits granting non-guests access to the suites. Marie thanked the concierge for his time and left the hotel feeling both more informed and more confused. Her father, the man she'd always seen as a paragon of integrity, had regularly stayed in that luxurious hotel, always insisting on the same discreet room. The implications were obvious and painful. On the drive back home, Marie tried to organize her thoughts. The evidence overwhelmingly suggested her father had carried on a secret relationship with Lily's mother. If that was true, how would she handle this revelation? And more importantly, what would it mean for Lily? As she turned onto her street, Marie saw a small figure sitting on the front steps of her house. Her heart skipped a beat. It was Lily, hugging her backpack, looking both determined and vulnerable at once. Marie parked and got out of the car, immediately noticing something different. Lily's usually bright face was serious, almost apprehensive. Lily? Are you okay? The girl stood up, adjusting her backpack. My mom wants to meet you. Marie froze. Of all the possible developments, this was not one she had considered. Your mom? Yeah, she's in the hospital. I told her about you, and she said she wants to see you. Wait, you told her about me? What exactly did you say? Lily shrugged, a typical childish gesture Marie now knew well. I said I found my dad's daughter, that you're nice and gave me milk and cookies. Marie took a deep breath, trying to process this new information. Claire Dubois, the mysterious woman who might have met her father at room 528 in the Grandview Hotel, wanted to meet her. Lily, how did your mum react when you told her about me? She got quiet for a while, then she cried a little. Lily looked down at her feet, then back up at Marie. She said there are important things she needs to tell me, to both of us. A wave of anxiety washed over Marie. Was she ready to meet Claire? To hear her side of the story? And if it confirmed her worst fears about her father? When does she want to see me? Now, Lily replied, extending a small hand toward Marie. Can we go? Please? Marie looked down at that little outstretched hand, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make. Going to the hospital meant diving deeper into this complicated situation, committing to an involvement that could change her life forever. Let me grab my purse, she finally said, stepping inside the house. While gathering her things, Marie fought an internal battle. She was about to meet a woman who had possibly shared a hidden part of her father's life, who had given birth to a child, her half-sister, a woman now gravely ill, possibly dying, who had raised that child alone. The ethical and emotional implications were overwhelming. If Lily really was her father's daughter, that created a responsibility. And if Claire was as sick as Lily implied, what would happen to the girl? Marie couldn't just ignore the situation, pretend she never found that drenched child on her doorstep. She went back outside, where Lily still waited patiently. Let's go, then. In the car, Marie helped Lily with her seatbelt before starting the engine. During the ride, she observed the girl from the corner of her eye, noticing details she hadn't before. The shape of her chin, the way she wrinkled her nose when focused, traits that reminded Marie of her father. Lily, what did your mom tell you about your dad? The girl kept her gaze on the window. That he's a good man, that he doesn't know about me, but one day we'd meet. Did she say why he doesn't know about you? She said something complicated happened. Lily turned to Marie. That's all I know. Mom said she'd explain when we're older. Marie tried other questions during the drive, but Lily remained evasive. either because she didn't know the answers or because she'd been told not to reveal too much. They drove through a part of the city Marie rarely visited. The route to the hospital wound through tree-lined streets and past a park, Lily pointed out, saying she used to play there with her mum before she got too tired. Marie noticed how familiar Lily was with the route, indicating where to turn, pointing out the hospital parking lot as someone who'd been there many times. The child's familiarity with this routine, visiting her sick mother, was both impressive and heartbreaking. Walking through the parking lot, Marie observed Lily's face. There was anxiety, but also hope. She seemed genuinely happy to introduce Marie to her mother, as if finally uniting two puzzle pieces she'd long wanted to fit together. "Are you nervous?" Lily asked, surprising Marie with her perception. "A little," Marie admitted. "I don't know what to expect. Mom's nervous too. She did her hair today and asked for her pink lipstick." That small detail, a sick woman in a hospital wanting to look presentable for this meeting, stirred a sudden wave of empathy in Marie for Claire. As they approached the hospital entrance, Marie felt the weight of the situation. In just over a week, her life had turned upside down. The image she had of her father, her family, and even her own identity were all in question. And now, she was about to meet the woman who might confirm her worst suspicions or offer an explanation she'd never considered. They followed the hushed corridors, the smell of disinfectant and the oppressive silence intensifying Marie's tension. Lily, in contrast, walked with familiarity, occasionally greeting nurses by name. "This is it," Lily finally said, stopping in front of a closed door. "Room 215. Marie looked at the door, her heart pounding. On the other side was Claire Dubois, the woman who may have shared part of her father's life, who had given birth to a child who might be Marie's half-sister. What would she say? What would Claire have to tell her? "Are you coming?" Lily asked, her hand already on the doorknob. Marie took a deep breath, aware that once she crossed that threshold, there would be no turning back. Her life had changed ever since Lily showed up at her door, but she sensed the real turning point was about to happen now, in this hospital room. "I'm coming," she answered, mustering courage as Lily opened the door. Standing on the threshold, Marie glanced inside the room. She saw a pale figure on the hospital bed lift her gaze to meet hers. The moment Marie had both feared and anticipated had finally arrived. Marie stepped into the hospital room, following Lily, who walked in with the ease of someone who came there daily. Her heart pounded so hard, she was sure the sound filled the sterile quiet of the room. The room resembled so many others in hospitals: pale walls, a window with half-drawn blinds letting in soft light, medical equipment blinking silently. But what riveted Marie's attention was the woman in the bed. Claire Dubois sat propped up by several pillows. Despite her pallor and obvious frailty, Marie could see she was, or had once been, a beautiful woman. The same blue eyes as Lily's looked back at her with a mix of apprehension and relief. Her hair, though thinned and dull from illness, had been carefully arranged, and a touch of pink lipstick softened the pallor of her lips. "Mom, I brought her," Lily announced, hurrying to the bedside and taking Claire's hand. "This is Marie." Claire kept her gaze on Marie for a long moment. "You look like him," she finally said in a low but steady voice. "You have his eyes." Marie stood frozen near the door, unsure whether to come closer. "You know my father," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Claire replied. "Thomas and I, we knew each other very well." She turned to Lily. "Sweetheart, why, would you mind asking Nurse Rose about that special pudding she promised? I need to speak with Marie alone." Lily hesitated, glancing from her mother to Marie. "It's okay," Claire assured her with a tired smile. "We'll both be here when you get back." Once Lily left, a heavy silence filled the room. Claire broke it first. "Please, have a seat," she said, indicating the chair beside the bed. "I imagine you have a lot of questions." Marie moved slowly to the chair and sat. Up close, she could better see the signs of illness on Claire's face. The paper-thin skin, the hollowed eyes, the slightly labored breathing. "Is it true?" Marie asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Is my father Lily's father too?" Claire closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When she opened them again, there was a determination in them that contrasted with her frail body. "Yes, Thomas Laurent is Lily's father." Even though Marie had suspected it for days, hearing the confirmation hit her like the ground dropping out from beneath her. How did that happen?" "I worked as an administrative assistant at Sterling Pharmaceuticals about 7 years ago. Your father was the director of new product development," Claire explained, shifting on the pillows with a small groan of pain. "We met during a major project. He spent long hours at the office, and I was often the last one there." Claire recounted how, at first, the relationship was strictly professional. Thomas was respectful, kind, a boss who valued his team's work. But over time, late nights turned into dinner, personal conversations, and a closeness that grew gradually. "I knew he was married," Claire admitted. "Or I thought he was. He wore a wedding ring and occasionally mentioned a daughter, never by name, but now I know it was you." "But you got involved with him anyway," Marie said, unable to keep an edge of accusation from her voice. Claire looked her in the eye. "Yes, I'm not proud of it, but it happened. Thomas told me his marriage had been dead for years, that he was only staying married for his daughter, that he was planning to divorce." Marie frowned. Her parents had separated when she was 15, but her father had always claimed it was mutual, amicable. He'd never mentioned another woman. "The relationship lasted almost a year," Claire continued. "We'd meet at the Grandview Hotel, always the same room 2 or 3 days a week. Thomas said he was arranging everything so we could be together openly." She glanced at the window. "Then I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned, but I was happy. I thought it would be the incentive Thomas needed to finally go through with his plans." Claire took a shaky breath, and Marie noticed her hands trembling on the blanket. "When I told him, Thomas was stunned. He asked for time to think, to get everything in order. He said he loved me, that he would love our child, but he needed to do this the right way. I believed him." A sad smile curved her lips. 3 days later, I was called to HR and fired due to corporate restructuring. My severance was already prepared, a generous amount so I wouldn't contest it." "My father did that?" Marie asked, horrified. "I'm not sure. Maybe it was someone else. Someone found out about us, about the pregnancy." That same night, I got a phone call from a woman who refused to identify herself. She told me if I valued my life and that of my baby, I should take the money, leave town, and never contact Thomas Laurent again. She said he'd never leave his family for me, that I was nothing more than a temporary distraction. Marie felt a chill. "A woman? Who?" "I never found out," Claire shrugged. "I was afraid. I was pregnant, alone, had just lost my job. I returned to my hometown, where my sister lived, and started a new life. Lily was born 6 months later." She reached for a cup of water on the bedside table, and Marie instinctively got up to help. Claire took a sip, then continued. "At first, I still hoped Thomas would look for me. I thought when he discovered a daughter had been born, he'd come. I left my contact details with a former co-worker in case he asked about me, but he never asked. Maybe he didn't know you had the baby," Marie offered weakly, though she doubted it herself. "Maybe, over time, I built a life for me and Lily. Got a modest job, found a small apartment. It wasn't easy, but we managed. I never badmouthed Thomas to Lily, always saying they'd meet one day." Claire glanced at the door, as if checking whether Lily might return at any moment. "Then I was diagnosed with cancer, late stage. The doctor said I don't have much time." Her voice quavered slightly. "I couldn't leave without at least trying one last time. Lily deserves to meet her father, to know where she comes from." Marie felt a lump in her throat. Each revelation crashed over her like an avalanche, shattering the image she had of her father and her family. Why didn't you contact him directly when you came back? Marie asked. Why send Lily on her own? I was scared. Still am. I never forgot that threat. And I didn't know how Thomas would react after all this time. I thought if Lily found you first, maybe it'd be easier. And I was right, wasn't I? You welcomed her, and now you're here. Marie thought of her mother, who had died 3 years before. Could she have been the woman who threatened Claire? Or was it someone else? And her father. Did he know Claire had carried his child? That he had another daughter? She remembered how her father had become oddly distant for a while, right after her parents' separation. How he'd buried himself in work, traveling constantly. Was it guilt, regret for losing not just his marriage, but a new love and a child? Marie. Claire's voice pulled her back. I know this is a lot to process. I don't expect you to believe me right away, or forgive me for getting involved with your father. But Lily, she's innocent in all of this. When I'm gone, she'll have no one. Tears Claire had held back now began to flow. I'm not asking you to take care of her. I know that's unfair to put on you. But at least, help her meet Thomas. She deserves to have a father. Marie looked at the woman before her, a woman who had loved her father, who had raised his child alone, who was now facing death, knowing she'd leave that child behind. A whirlwind of conflicting emotions surged in Marie. Anger at the secret kept all these years, compassion for Claire's situation, sorrow for the half-sister she never knew she had. I'll help, Marie finally said, surprising even herself with the conviction in her voice. I'm not sure how yet, but I won't abandon Lily. And I'll find out the whole truth, who threatened you, why my father never looked for you. Lily deserves to know, and so do I. Claire reached out with a trembling hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Marie took it. A silent understanding passed between them. Two strangers connected by a man and a child, now united by promises and secrets at last brought to light. Thank you, Claire whispered, gratitude shining in her tired eyes. I think you're more like your father than you realize, the good man I knew, not the one who left me. At that moment, the door opened and Lily walked in, proudly carrying a small pudding cup. Her curious eyes flicked between her mother and Marie, trying to decipher what had happened in her absence. Everything okay? Lily asked, approaching cautiously. Marie exchanged a look with Claire, then turned to her sister. Yes, her sister, with a reassuring smile. Yes, Lily. We're starting to figure things out, and we're going to be all right. Marie could barely remember the drive from the hospital back to her house. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions after talking to Claire. Every word, every revelation, every puzzle piece that now began to fit together echoed in her head. Pulling into her driveway, she noticed her father's car. Thomas had returned from his trip a day earlier than expected. Fate, it seemed, was forcing this confrontation now, before she had any chance to organize her thoughts. For a moment, Marie just sat in the car, her hands still gripping the steering wheel. How could she confront the man who, until a few weeks ago, had been the solid foundation of her life? How could she look him in the eye and ask why he abandoned a pregnant woman, why he never mentioned another daughter? Summoning her courage, she grabbed her purse and walked to the door. The house was silent as she entered. She found her father in his study, working on his laptop as if it were just another ordinary day. Marie, he smiled upon seeing her, but the smile wavered when he noticed her expression. Is everything all right? No, Dad, nothing is all right, she said, her voice steadier than expected. We need to talk. Now. Thomas slowly closed his laptop, his face adopting that neutral expression Marie knew well, the one he used in tough business meetings. What happened? Marie set the Grandview Hotel receipts on the desk, along with the planner containing Claire's phone number. I met Claire Dubois today. She told me everything. Her father's face went visibly pale. For a long moment, he just stared at the items on the desk as though they belonged to another world. I'm not sure what you're talking about, he finally said, his voice controlled. though Marie noticed his hands trembling slightly. "Don't lie to me." The anger she'd been holding back erupted. "Enough with the lies. Claire told me about your affair, about how you abandoned her when she got pregnant, how she was fired and threatened to stay away from you." Thomas stood and walked to the window, turning his back on Marie. The silence between them was thick with secrets and betrayal. "Her daughter's name is Lily," Marie continued, her voice now softer. "She's 6 years old, has blue eyes like yours, and she's about to lose her mother to cancer. She has no idea why her father never wanted to meet her." Thomas's shoulders slumped visibly. When he turned to face his daughter, his expression was a mix of shame and sorrow. "I didn't know," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know Claire had the baby. I didn't know about Lily." "How could you not know? Claire said she left her contact with a co-worker in case you looked for her." "I never looked," Thomas admitted, running a hand over his face, suddenly seeming much older. "I thought it would be cleaner." Marie felt a wave of outrage. "Cleaner? You ended a relationship and just erased that woman from your life without checking if she was okay, if the child she carried, your child, had been born." Thomas finally sank back into his chair, as though his legs could no longer hold him. "You're right. I was a coward." The blunt admission startled Marie. She'd expected more denial, more excuses. "So it's true. Everything Claire told me." Thomas sighed deeply. "Yes, Claire and I had a relationship while she worked at Sterling Pharmaceuticals. It lasted almost a year. I'm not proud of it, but it happened. You told her your marriage to Mom was over. It was emotionally. Your mother and I had been distant for years. We stayed together mostly for your sake." Marie remembered the coldness between her parents during her teenage years, the forced conversations, separate bedrooms, but that still didn't excuse everything. "And when Claire said she was pregnant?" Thomas closed his eyes briefly. "I panicked. It wasn't part of the plan. I asked for time to think, to sort things out. Then she was fired." "That wasn't my decision," Thomas said quickly. "I would never fire her for being pregnant." "Then who did it?" "Claire said she got a threatening phone call from a woman." "Was it Mom?" Thomas looked away. "I don't know who fired her or who made the call. All I know is that 3 days after Claire told me about the pregnancy, I was summoned by the company's CEO. He knew about us. He said it was inappropriate, a potential scandal. He gave me 2 choices: end the relationship immediately or lose my directorship." "And you chose your career," Marie concluded, disappointment clear in her voice. "I chose my career, yes. I chose the financial stability that paid for your college," Thomas said, lifting his eyes to hers. "I'm not justifying myself, Marie. It was a selfish choice. Back then, I told myself it was best for everyone, that a scandal would only hurt Claire as well, that she'd be better off without me." "You were forced to break things off," Marie repeated the words Claire had used. "But by whom exactly? The CEO found out on his own." Thomas hesitated. "Someone must have told him, someone who knew about us." "Who, Dad? Did Mom know?" Another hesitation. "I'd rather not talk about that now, Marie. Please." Marie sensed there was more her father wasn't telling her, but each new revelation was painful enough on its own, one step at a time. "Then you never thought about Claire, about looking for her, or finding out what happened to the baby?" "I thought about her often," Thomas admitted, voice low. "Especially after your mother and I finally divorced. But so much time had passed. I assumed she'd moved on, started a new life. Maybe she'd even ended the pregnancy. I convinced myself it would be selfish of me to reappear and disrupt her life again. So you just pretended nothing happened, that there wasn't a woman out there raising your child alone." "I did what I thought was right at the time," Thomas said. "I was wrong, obviously. Terribly wrong." Marie got up, unable to remain seated. Anger, disappointment, and sadness roiled inside her like a storm. "Claire is dying, Dad. Late-stage cancer. In a few months, Lily will be an orphan, a 6-year-old who spent her life hearing that one day she'd meet her dad. And all because you chose your career over accepting responsibility for your own child. The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. He paled even more. Claire is dying. Yes, and Lily has been waiting for you. She showed up at our door 2 weeks ago, looking for the father her mother promised she'd meet someday. Marie grabbed her purse. You have another daughter, Dad. A daughter who will soon have no one else in the world. Thomas buried his face in his hands. My God, what have I done? Marie turned toward the door, unable to stay in that room with a man she barely recognized now. Lily will be at the hospital tomorrow, visiting her mom. If you have any shred of decency, you'll go meet her. She deserves at least that. Leaving her father's study, Marie snatched her car keys again. She needed air, space, and time to process all she'd learned. Her father, the man she'd always admired, had abandoned a pregnant woman to protect his career and had ignored the existence of a child for 6 years. Starting the engine, Marie realized silent tears were streaming down her face. Tears for Claire, for Lily, for the father she thought she knew, and for the family she never realized she had. The next 3 days after her confrontation with her father blurred for Marie. She avoided returning home, staying at a small downtown hotel instead. She needed distance, time to process all she had learned. She visited Claire and Lily twice at the hospital, always at times she knew her father would be at work, ensuring there would be no unexpected encounters. In her hotel room, Marie spent hours lying on the bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every word of her conversation with Claire, every expression on her father's face during their confrontation. The revelations had shaken the very foundations of her understanding of her family and herself. Something continued to bother her, like a puzzle piece that still didn't fit. Her father had mentioned the CEO's discovery of his affair, but hadn't explained who might have told him. Claire mentioned a mysterious woman who threatened her by phone. Both things seemed connected, and Marie had a growing suspicion about who that woman might be. On the morning of the 4th day, Marie made a decision. She drove to the upscale suburb where her mother had lived since the divorce, 3 years earlier. She didn't call ahead. She knew that would only give Elise Laurent time to prepare her defenses. Her mother's house was like Elise herself, impeccable, elegant, and a bit cold. The perfectly manicured lawn, the flawless white facade, everything spoke of order and control. Marie exhaled deeply before ringing the doorbell. Elise opened the door, her expression shifting from surprise to a cautious smile. At 54, she was in excellent shape, her dark brown hair always perfectly dyed and styled. Marie, what a pleasant surprise. Why didn't you call first? We need to talk, Mom, Marie replied, not returning the smile. It's important. Something in Marie's tone must have warned Elise, because her smile faltered before she stepped aside. Of course, come in. I just made some coffee. The living room, like the rest of the house, was a study in minimalist elegance. Marie declined the offer of coffee and went straight to the point. Mom, what do you know about Claire Dubois? The name had an immediate effect. Elise froze for a second, coffee cup halfway to her lips, before regaining a mask of feigned confusion. Claire Dubois? I don't recall knowing anyone by that name. Marie didn't look away. She worked with Dad at Sterling Pharmaceuticals 7 years ago. They had an affair. Oh, Elise placed the cup down carefully. That was a long time ago, Marie. Your father and I were practically separated when it happened. It was painful then, but I've moved on. So you did know, Marie pressed, noting how carefully her mother chose her words. I found out eventually, yes. Your father told me before we got divorced. Elise kept her tone calm and controlled, but her fingers drummed lightly on the table, a nervous habit Marie recognized. He told you she was pregnant too. A heavy silence fell. Elise looked at her hands, then out at the garden through the window, as if searching for an escape. Mom, Marie insisted, leaning forward. Claire was pregnant when she was fired and forced to leave the city. She gave birth to a girl, Lily, my half-sister. Elise abruptly stood and walked to the window. Why dredge all this up now, Marie? What matters is what we did afterward. how we moved on. It matters because Claire is dying of cancer, because Lily is 6 and will soon be an orphan, because someone threatened Claire by phone, telling her to disappear if she cared about her life and the babies. Marie studied her mother's reaction carefully. Elise remained with her back turned, but her shoulders visibly tensed. "It was you, wasn't it?" Marie asked, her voice softer now. "You found out about them, about the pregnancy. You told the CEO. You made that threatening call." Elise turned slowly. Her face was pale but composed. "You can't understand, Marie. You can't know what it's like to watch your marriage crumble, to see your husband fall in love with someone else." The implicit admission hit Marie like a physical blow, despite having suspected it. "So it was you. I did what I had to do to protect our family." Elise sank back into her chair, as though her legs could no longer support her. "When I discovered the affair, I monitored your father's phone. I read their messages. She was planning to tell him about the pregnancy. I knew that once that happened, I'd lose Thomas for good. So you decided to intervene." Elise nodded slowly. "I called Charles Mercer, the company's CEO. He and I had known each other socially for years. I told him about Thomas's improper relationship with his assistant, hinted it could become a scandal or even a harassment lawsuit." Marie tasted bitterness in her mouth. "And the threatening phone call. You really threatened a pregnant woman?" Elise's eyes hardened. "I said what needed to be said, that Thomas would never leave his family for her, that he had a brilliant career and a daughter to raise. I told her if she truly cared about the baby, she should let him go." "Did you threaten violence?" "Of course not." Elise looked genuinely horrified. "I merely suggested her continued presence would cause problems for everyone involved, including her and the baby. That some people would do whatever it took to protect their interests." Marie closed her eyes for a moment, trying to absorb it all. "And Dad? He knew what you did." "Not the specifics. I just told him that if he chose that woman, I'd take you out of the country and he'd never see you again. It was an ultimatum." Elise hesitated. "It worked. He ended it. And you never told him about the baby." "I wasn't sure she was really pregnant or if it was a trick. And afterward, well, it no longer mattered. It was over." Marie stood, unable to keep sitting there in front of her mother. She felt torn between anger at her mother's cold, calculated manipulation and a reluctant understanding of her motivations. Elise had fought for her marriage in the only way she knew, driven by fear of losing not just her husband, but also access to her daughter. A child grew up without a father because of that, Mom. Claire raised Lily alone while battling cancer. And now she's dying and Lily will have nobody. Elise lowered her head. "I'm sorry for them. I truly am. But at the time, all I could think about was you, me, our family." Marie walked to the door, needing fresh air, needing distance. She paused at the threshold. Claire never told Lily what really happened. She never spoke ill of her father. She only said that one day they would meet. Despite everything you and Dad did, she protected her daughter from the ugly truth. Marie inhaled deeply. "I'm going to make sure Lily meets Dad before it's too late. I'm going to fix whatever I can of this mess you both created." Leaving her mother's house, Marie felt as though a weight had been partially lifted. Now she knew the entire truth, painful but complete. Each of her parents, in their own way, had made decisions that altered many lives forever. Driving back into the city, Marie reflected on how a series of selfish choices had left an innocent child fatherless for 6 years. She couldn't change the past, but she could help shape the future. For Lily, for Claire, and maybe even for herself. After learning her mother's role in separating Thomas from Claire, Marie spent hours aimlessly driving around, trying to organize her thoughts. The disappointment she felt toward both parents was deep, her father for his cowardice, her mother for her manipulation. But in the midst of this emotional storm, one thought crystallized. None of this was Lily's fault. That determined little girl who had knocked on her door weeks earlier deserved far more than to be collateral damage in the selfish decisions of the adults around her. Marie decided that, regardless of how she felt about her parents, she needed to build a relationship with her half-sister. The following morning, Marie headed to the hospital. She found Claire sitting up in bed, paler and frailer than last time, but with alert eyes. Lily wasn't there. A nurse had taken her for hot chocolate while Claire underwent some tests. "Marie," Claire smiled weakly upon seeing her. "I didn't expect you today." Marie sat in the chair by the bed. "I found out everything," she said without preamble. "I spoke to my father and my mother. I know what happened 7 years ago." Claire looked down at her pale hands on the blanket. "So now you hate me, I suppose?" "No," Marie replied, surprising even herself with the certainty in her voice. "I don't hate you or my parents, even though I'm deeply disappointed in them. But I'm here for Lily." The mention of her daughter made Claire lift her gaze. "Lily? I want to be part of her life," Marie explained. "She's my sister. And when you're no longer here, I want to make sure she isn't alone." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "You have no idea what that means to me. I've tried to stay strong for her, but my greatest fear is leaving her without anyone." "I won't lie, Claire. I'm still processing all of this, but I know it's not Lily's fault, and she deserves a family. We're practically strangers, but I want to build a relationship with her." Claire wiped away a tear. "Lily already likes you so much. She talks about you all the time, how nice you are, how pretty your house is, how you patiently answer all her questions." Marie smiled for the first time in days. "She's an incredible child. You've done a wonderful job raising her." "Thank you," Claire said softly. "I did my best, given the circumstances." "And my father? Lily mentioned he hasn't come to see her yet." Claire shook her head. "No, when I told her about you, I thought he might come too, but he hasn't." Marie felt a pang of renewed disappointment in her father. "He's confused, afraid. That doesn't excuse him, but maybe with a bit more time." "Time is something I don't have much of," Claire said sadly. "The doctors say it's a matter of months now, maybe weeks." A heavy silence fell between them, the clock ticking in the background sounding louder than usual. "How can we make this work?" Marie finally asked. "How can we do what's best for Lily together?" "She needs to meet her father before I'm gone," Claire said firmly. "She needs to know she won't be completely alone in the world, that she has a family even if it's complicated." Marie nodded. "I'll talk to him again. In the meantime, I'd like to spend more time with Lily, if that's okay with you. Get to know her better, let her get to know me." "I'd love that," Claire answered, the relief evident on her face. "It would be so good for her to have you as a constant in her life." They spent the next hour discussing Lily, her likes, her fears, her school routine. Marie soaked up every detail, building a more complete picture of the sister she barely knew. In the days that followed, Marie rearranged her life to spend more time with Lily. She began picking her up from school twice a week, taking her to visit Claire, then out to the park for ice cream, or simply back to Marie's house for movies and story time. At first, there was some hesitation on Lily's part, an understandable adjustment between two people still getting to know each other. But Lily's natural openness and Marie's determination to form a bond soon created a genuine connection. Marie found unexpected joy in the afternoons she spent with her sister, her infectious enthusiasm, her endless curiosity, her easy laugh that seemed to brighten any space. One afternoon, while strolling through a park after visiting Claire, Lily asked the question Marie had been dreading. "Marie, why doesn't my dad want to meet me?" Marie guided Lily to a bench, helping her settle beside her. How could she explain such a complicated situation to a 6-year-old? "He does want to, Lily," she finally said, choosing her words carefully. "But he's scared." "Scared of me?" Lily's confusion tugged at Marie's heart. "No, sweetheart. He's scared of himself, of the mistakes he made. Sometimes grown-ups do things wrong, and then they're afraid to face what comes next." Lily considered this carefully, furrowing her brow in the same way Thomas did when he concentrated. Like when I broke Mom's vase and was scared to tell her. Marie smiled. Something like that, only much bigger and more complicated. But do you remember what happened when you finally told her about the vase? She was sad, but then she hugged me and said she loved me anyway. Exactly. And I'm sure that once my dad, your dad, gets past his fear, he'll love you just as much. Do you think he'll like me? Lily asked with a vulnerability that made Marie's throat tighten. I'm absolutely sure. It's impossible not to like you, Lily. That conversation strengthened Marie's resolve. That evening she drove to her father's house. Thomas looked like he'd aged years in the 2 weeks since their confrontation. Thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, a defeated air that Marie had never seen before. Lily asked why her dad doesn't want to meet her, Marie said, after refusing the coffee he offered. What should I tell her? Thomas looked away. I don't know how to face her, Marie. How do I look in the eyes of a child I abandoned before she was born? She needs you. Claire doesn't have much time left, and Lily is going to need as much family as she can get. What about your mother? He asked quietly. Does she know about all this? Yes. And while she's not happy, she understands the situation is bigger than her personal preferences right now. That wasn't entirely true. Elise had reacted with cool civility at best when it came to Lily, but Marie was determined to manage that situation somehow. I'll try, Thomas finally whispered. I can't promise I'll be good at this, but I'll try. It was a start, a small step toward bridging the gap Marie was trying so hard to close between these fractured parts of her newly discovered family. In the following weeks, Marie continued to strengthen her bond with Lily. Each moment spent together solidified her role as big sister, helping with homework, teaching painting tricks — Lily loved to draw — sharing confidences during long walks. At the same time, she worked patiently on bringing her father and Lily closer, first by casually mentioning him, then showing Lily photos, and finally arranging a brief, supervised meeting at the hospital. It was awkward and tense, with Thomas visibly nervous and Lily both curious and guarded. But it was a start, one small seed planted. Marie also attempted to soften her mother's resistance, though with less success. Elise remained distant, polite but frosty on the subject of Lily. Give her time, Thomas advised. She'll get used to the idea eventually. Throughout it all, Marie found herself growing in ways she never anticipated, acting as a mediator among these different worlds, bridging people wounded by past choices, required maturity and compassion she never knew she had. And her relationship with Lily offered a joy and sense of purpose that filled a void she hadn't realized existed. One afternoon, while helping Lily build a block castle in Claire's hospital room, Marie realized that despite all the pain and disappointment of the past few weeks, she'd found something precious. A sister, a connection, a chance to create something good out of so many mistakes. Claire, watching them from the bed, caught Marie's eye and smiled weakly, a silent understanding passing between them. Despite everything, they were trying to make things right, to build bridges where there once were only chasms, for Lily, for all of them. 3 weeks later, Marie received an unexpected call from the hospital. She braced for the worst, but the news was surprisingly positive. Claire was responding well to a new treatment. The doctors mentioned partial remission, perhaps extra months, maybe even a year if the improvement continued. Amid the relief of this news came practical questions that had once seemed distant. If Claire survived longer than expected, what would that mean for Lily? For all the temporary arrangements? It's a blessing, of course, Claire told Marie during a visit, looking still pale but hopeful. But it complicates everything. Lily was starting to adjust to the idea of, well, you know. Marie squeezed Claire's hand. It's a good complication. We'll figure it out together. In the weeks that followed, Marie became the mediator between Claire and her father. After their tense first meeting with Lily at the hospital, Thomas slowly started to show genuine interest in getting to know his youngest daughter. He offered to help with Claire's medical bills and began asking about Lily's school, her interests, her needs. "He wants to meet you again," Marie told Claire one afternoon, while Lily was in an art therapy session offered by the hospital. To discuss the future, more permanent arrangements for Lily. Claire nodded, looking tired but resolute. "I suppose it's time for Lily." Marie arranged a lunch at the hospital, a neutral setting for everyone. The meeting began awkwardly, with Thomas visibly uncomfortable and Claire guarded. But when the conversation shifted to Lily, something changed. They both cared about the girl, and that was common ground. "I want to be part of her life," Thomas finally said. "I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try to be the father she needs." "And if I recover completely," Claire asked, "if I can take care of her on my own again, then I'll still be there for her, as much as you'll allow," Thomas replied, surprising Marie with his humility. "I'm not trying to replace you or take your daughter away. I just want to know her, make up for lost time if I can." Together, with Marie mediating, they reached an arrangement. While Claire remained in the hospital, Lily would split her time between Thomas's home and Claire's apartment, where a home nurse would stay when Claire was temporarily discharged. Once Claire was well enough to return full-time, they'd revisit the schedule. But Thomas would have regular visitation rights. Balancing this new familial role with her own life proved challenging for Marie. Her job at the accounting firm suffered because of her frequent absences. Her budding relationship with Mark, a co-worker, cooled after she cancelled several dates in a row. "I can't explain everything right now," she told him after yet another cancellation. "It's a complicated family situation." "It always is," Mark replied, disappointment evident in his voice. Marie also struggled to rebuild trust with her parents. With her father, it was easier. United by a common goal of caring for Lily, they were slowly repairing the damage caused by the revelations. With her mother, it was more complicated. Elise remained aloof, polite, but cold regarding Lily. "Give her time," Thomas repeated. "This stirs up a lot of old feelings." One rainy Sunday afternoon, Marie arranged a meeting between Lily and Thomas at her house, a more personal setting than the hospital, with Marie present as a safety net. "He's nervous," Marie explained as she brushed Lily's hair. "Just like you are." "What if he doesn't like me?" Lily asked, that familiar vulnerability in her voice. "That's impossible. He already likes you. He just doesn't know how to show it yet." When Thomas arrived, carrying an awkwardly wrapped package, Marie felt a wave of compassion for her father. He looked so lost, so eager to do the right thing. The meeting began stiffly, with forced small talk and uncomfortable silences. But when Thomas revealed the gift, a set of professional watercolor paints, after Marie told him Lily loved to paint, something shifted. "Are these like real artists use?" Lily asked, wide-eyed. "Exactly the same." Thomas smiled. "I thought we could paint something together, if you'd like to show me how." What followed was an afternoon of laughter, spilled paint, and, finally, a hesitant first hug that made Marie blink back tears. Watching father and daughter begin to forge a connection, Marie reflected on how her own life had changed in a matter of months. She had lost certain things: the idealized image of her parents, a promising romance, the tranquility of her old routine. But she'd gained others, a sister she adored, a new understanding of herself, and an unexpected ability to navigate turbulent emotional waters she never knew she could handle. "Are you all right?" her father asked softly, as Lily ran off to fetch more paper. Marie smiled, noticing the blue paint stain on Thomas's expensive shirt. The relaxed smile she hadn't seen on his face in months, the pure joy on Lily's face. "I am," she replied, and realized it was true. "We're all growing, aren't we?" After weeks of scheduling separate gatherings for the different branches of the family, Marie decided it was time to attempt something more ambitious, bringing everyone together at once. The idea came after Claire was discharged to continue treatment at home. Her prognosis had improved, and doctors were now talking about years, not months. "Are you sure about this?" Thomas asked when Marie suggested the plan. "Your mother and Claire in the same space could be..." Explosive. That's exactly why we need to do it, Marie insisted. We can't keep this family scattered with secrets and resentments. For Lily's sake. For all of us. Convincing Elise was the hardest part. She remained adamant in her refusal to meet Lily or acknowledge Claire's existence. "You're asking me to have dinner with my ex-husband's mistress," Elise said coldly when Marie visited her. "The woman who almost destroyed our marriage." "I'm asking you to have dinner with the mother of your daughter's half-sister," Marie corrected gently. "A woman fighting cancer, trying to secure a future for her child." After much persuasion, Elise finally agreed, though she made it clear she was doing it only for Marie's sake, not for Thomas or Claire, and certainly not for Lily. Marie chose a neutral setting for the gathering, the small apartment she had recently rented, after realizing she needed her own space in this new chapter of her life. It was modest but cozy, free of memories or associations for anyone. Sunday arrived under a cloudy sky that matched Marie's own apprehension. She spent the morning cooking, an activity that always calmed her, and carefully setting the table. She wanted everything to be as perfect, or at least as peaceful, as possible under the circumstances. Claire and Lily were the first to arrive. Claire looked better than she had in weeks, with a bit more color in her cheeks, though still visibly fragile. Lily, wearing her best dress, carried a drawing she had made especially for the occasion, a painting of several people holding hands under a bright sun. "It's our family," she explained solemnly to Marie. "You, me, Mom, Dad, and the lady I haven't met yet." Marie felt a lump in her throat at how Lily already included them all in her idea of family, despite the adult complications. Thomas arrived next, bringing a bottle of wine and flowers for Claire, a gesture that surprised Marie with its thoughtfulness. He looked visibly nervous, fiddling with his tie and speaking a little too quickly. When the doorbell rang a third time, everyone fell silent. Marie opened the door for her mother, who entered as though preparing for battle, elegant as always, posture immaculate, but with rigid shoulders betraying her tension. The first minutes were painfully awkward. Thomas made a clumsy attempt to introduce Elise to Claire, while Lily watched everyone with open curiosity. Marie busied herself handing out appetizers and drinks, her heart pounding from the tension in the air. It was Lily, with the disarming honesty of a child, who broke the ice. "Are you Marie's mom?" she asked Elise directly. "Marie said you have a butterfly collection. Can I see it someday?" Elise, caught off guard, looked at Lily, really looked at her for the first time. Something in her face softened, almost imperceptibly. "They're preserved specimens in frames, not live butterflies," she answered, her voice less cold than Marie expected. "I know what specimens are," Lily said seriously. "They're dead animals kept for scientific study." "I learned that in school." An involuntary smile flickered on Elise's lips. "That's correct. And yes, perhaps one day you can see them." That small exchange paved the way for others. During dinner, conversation was halting at first, but gradually found a rhythm. They stuck to neutral topics, the weather, the food, local news, until Marie gently steered them to what really mattered. "I think we all know why we're here," she said as she served dessert. "We're a family now, however unconventional, and we need to figure out how to move forward together, for Lilykas, but also for ourselves." A heavy silence followed. Thomas spoke first, turning toward Claire. "I want to ask your forgiveness," he said, voice trembling. "What I did, abandoning you when you needed me most, never checking on whether you had the baby, was inexcusable. I was a coward." Claire regarded him for a long moment before replying. "For a long time I hated you, Thomas. I kept waiting for you to come, at least to find out about the baby. When Lily was born and you didn't show up, that hope died." She paused. "But now, I see you're trying. Not for the past, but for Lily, right now. And that's what matters." Thomas then looked at Lily, who watched everything with wide eyes. "And you, Lily, I know I missed a lot. Your first steps, words, teeth. I can't get that time back, but I promise I'll be here for you from now on if you'll give me a chance." Lily considered this with a seriousness that sometimes surprised Marie. "Mom always said you were a good man who didn't know about me. Now you do know, so it's okay." The simple innocence of a child's forgiveness brought tears to more than one pair of eyes around the table. But there was still one person who hadn't spoken. "Mom?" Marie prompted gently. "Do you want to say something?" Elise straightened, looking from Thomas to Claire. "I won't pretend I'm happy about this situation, or that I approve of the choices that led here." She paused, adjusting the napkin in her lap. "But Marie's right. This child," she glanced briefly at Lily, "deserves a united family. And as difficult as it is for me, I'm willing to try to accept things as they are. It wasn't exactly warm, but for Elise, it was a big step." Marie smiled gratefully at her mother, knowing how much that small gesture had cost her. The gathering ended with a tacit understanding. They would all try to make it work, one day at a time. No one was entirely comfortable yet, but it was a start. In the months that followed, Marie watched with satisfaction as small but significant changes took place. Her father, driven by a new sense of responsibility, began the legal process to acknowledge Lily as his daughter. At first, Claire was nervous, fearing a custody battle, but she soon realized it was important for Lily to have her paternity recognized officially. "She'll have legal rights, financial protection," Thomas explained at a meeting with Claire and a lawyer. "And I want her to have my last name, if that's okay with you." Claire nodded, emotional. "Lily Laurent sounds nice." With Claire's improved prognosis, the custody arrangements became less urgent but still necessary. They set up a routine where Lily spent most of her time with her mother, but visited Thomas on weekends. Marie often acted as the go-between, picking Lily up from school on Fridays and driving her to her father's house. Claire's integration into the extended family happened gradually. First, she was invited to Thomas's birthday, a small gathering but meaningful. Next, there was a Sunday lunch at the house Thomas now shared with Marie. Each occasion helped everyone grow more comfortable and less tense. Elise remained more distant, but even she began to show signs of change. When Lily's birthday came in October, 6 months after that first family meeting, Elise sent a present, a butterfly book and an invitation to see her collection. Marie took on the task of introducing Lily to other relatives, uncles, cousins, close family friends. Reactions ranged from shock to cautious acceptance, but Lily's charming nature usually won over even the most resistant. Explaining the situation to the outside world was tougher. There were curious stares, intrusive questions, and judgments. Thomas faced some awkward moments at work, when rumors spread about his secret daughter. Claire dealt with gossip in her neighborhood when she was seen with Lily's wealthy father. But together, they found ways to navigate these socially tricky waters. Marie often led the way, answering questions with straightforward honesty. "Yes, we recently discovered we have a younger sister. We're happy she's part of our lives now." One December afternoon, almost 8 months after Lily's first unexpected visit, Marie sat in her new apartment, watching snow begin to fall outside. On her sofa, Lily was busy drawing, while Claire flipped through a home decor magazine, looking healthier than Marie had ever seen her. Her phone buzzed with a message from her father. "I booked a table for all of us on Christmas. Even Elise agreed to come. Christmas miracle?" Marie smiled. If someone had told her a year ago that she would be in this situation, embracing a half-sister she never knew existed, forging a near friendship with her father's former secret partner, seeing her divorced parents sit at the same holiday table, she would have thought it impossible. Yet here they were. Imperfect, still healing old wounds, stumbling at times, but moving forward together. A new family structure that no one had planned yet somehow worked. "Marie, come see," Lily called, holding up her latest drawing. It was a Christmas tree with 6 figures around it, all of them, including Elise, standing hand in hand. Marie sat beside her sister, hugging her warmly. "It's perfect, Lily," she said, and realized she was speaking about more than just the drawing. Not perfect in a flawless sense, but perfect in its honesty, in the attempt to create something good out of a painful past. Each of them had found a place in this new family. Marie as the protective older sister and mediator, Thomas as the father striving to make up for lost time, Claire as the courageous mother who opened her heart to others in her daughter's life, Elise slowly learning to accept what she couldn't change, and Lily at the center, uniting them with her unconditional love and easy forgiveness. The path to acceptance hadn't been easy, and there was still a long way to go. But looking at Lily, at Claire, thinking about her father and even her mother, Marie knew it was worth every difficult step. Thomas's backyard looked unrecognizable. Colorful balloons floated among the trees, ribbons decorated the bushes, and a giant banner draped over the entrance read, "Happy Birthday, Lily, 7 years." The gift table was already overflowing, and guests were still arriving. Marie observed the scene from the porch, a warm sense of fulfillment spreading in her chest. A year had passed since a soaked little girl knocked on her door on a rainy night, turning her world upside down. So much had changed. "Everything looks wonderful," Claire said, coming over with 2 glasses of lemonade. She handed one to Marie and smiled. Lily is on cloud 9. Claire's health had vastly improved. The experimental treatment was working, and though no one spoke of a cure, the doctors were cautiously optimistic. Her hair was growing back, and she had a healthy color in her cheeks that contrasted sharply with how frail she'd once looked. "I can't believe we managed to get everyone together," Marie replied, gently clinking glasses with Claire. Even Aunt Jean came, and she practically never leaves her house anymore. They both laughed, sharing a camaraderie that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Their relationship had evolved from awkward tension to mutual respect, and eventually, something approaching true friendship. Bound by their love for Lily, they'd found ways to overcome old wounds. Across the yard, Thomas was helping Lily with the saddle on a pony he'd rented for the party. The girl giggled while he made overly serious remarks about the exact science of saddle tying, his large, gentle hands guiding hers patiently. "Look at them," Marie said softly. Who would have guessed? Thomas and Lily's relationship had flourished beyond everyone's expectations. After a hesitant start, they'd developed their own routines: Saturday swimming lessons, pizza and movie nights, bedtime stories when Lily stayed over at his house. Thomas, always reserved with his emotions, seemed to have discovered a new capacity for affection with his younger daughter. "He's a good father," Claire acknowledged. "He was different with me, but he was always good to you, right? Maybe he just needed a second chance." Marie nodded, thinking about the complexities of forgiveness and redemption they had all witnessed. No one in the family had emerged unscathed from the initial revelations. They all bore scars, but somehow together they were healing those old wounds. Elise arrived shortly after, looking as elegant as ever in a navy blue outfit, carrying a meticulously wrapped gift. It had taken her longer to find her place in this new family dynamic, but even she had gradually succumbed to Lily's irresistible charm. "Marie, sweetheart," Elise greeted her daughter with a kiss on the cheek. "This party is lovely. Where's the birthday girl?" "She's with Dad checking out the pony," Marie answered, watching her mother's expression. There was still a slight furrow of her brow whenever Elise heard Thomas and Lily referred to as father and daughter, but the improvement from her initial denial was remarkable. As more guests arrived, Lily's classmates, neighbors, and family friends, Marie realized they had managed to turn something potentially devastating into a new opportunity for connection. The painful secret that could have torn them apart had, paradoxically, brought them closer together. During the cake cutting, Marie stood beside her brother, Alexander, who had flown in from New York for the occasion. "I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this," he whispered, scanning the scene. A 7-year-old sister, Dad acting like a changed man, Mom being civil around his former mistress. "You've made all this happen, Marie. You held this family together." Marie blushed at the praise. "It wasn't me, it was Lily. She brought something out in all of us, a capacity to forgive, to start over, to love unconditionally." Later, when most of the guests had left, the core family remained on the back porch enjoying the late afternoon. Lily, tired but glowing with happiness, snuggled between Thomas and Claire on a porch swing, flipping through one of her new books. "I think this was the best party ever," she declared sleepily, gazing at the sky, now streaked with early evening stars. "And there will be many more to come," Thomas promised, sharing a meaningful look with Claire above Lily's head, an unspoken vow of continued cooperation, of family. Elise surprised everyone by bringing up the idea of a family vacation. "I was thinking," she said, shifting in her patio chair, "my beach house has been empty for years. It would be nice to see it full of life again." "A summer trip?" Marie asked, trying not to show her shock at her mother's unexpected suggestion. "The beach!" Lily exclaimed, perking up. "Can we all go?" A brief silence followed her innocent question. It was one thing to gather for a birthday party, another to plan an extended family holiday. "I think that would be wonderful," Claire finally said, looking at Elise with cautious gratitude. "If it works for everyone, of course." "The house has plenty of bedrooms," Elise continued, with a carefully casual tone, "and Alexander is a great cook." And so, almost without realizing it, they were planning their first trip together as a family. Thomas talked about teaching Lily to fish. Alexander promised to bring his new telescope for stargazing on the shore. And even Elise and Claire discussed what books they'd bring to read in the sun. Marie watched the scene with a sense of contentment she could never have imagined a year earlier. This new family, built atop the ruins of old secrets and mistakes, had found its own balance. Not perfect, not always easy, but genuinely committed to one another. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily dozed off against Thomas's shoulder. Claire gently brushed a strand of hair off her daughter's face, while quietly talking with Elise about possibly planting a butterfly garden at the beach house. "For live species, not just for your collection," she teased, earning a reluctant smile from the other woman. Marie felt a surge of gratitude and hope. This was her family now, expanded, patched together, and stronger for the fractures that almost destroyed it. Together, they had learned the hardest lessons about honesty, forgiveness, and what family truly means. The future stretched out before them like the ocean they would soon visit. Vast, sometimes daunting, but filled with possibilities. Marie didn't know exactly what lay ahead in her own life. Maybe resuming the graduate studies she'd postponed. Maybe giving a chance to that book editor she'd met who invited her to coffee. She only knew that whatever came next, she wouldn't be alone. "What are you thinking about?" Alexander asked, noticing her distant gaze. Marie smiled, observing the familial tableau before her. Her father cradling a dozing Lily, Claire and Elise conversing civilly, the table still scattered with cake remnants and unwrapped presents. "I'm thinking that sometimes the strongest bonds are the ones we choose to build, not just the ones we're born into." Alexander nodded, understanding perfectly. As night softly descended over the yard, the family continued planning their trip to the beach, their voices weaving together in an imperfect but genuine harmony. A promise of shared summers, birthdays, and holidays, a future none of them had ever imagined, but one that now felt more natural than anything else. Lily stirred in her sleep and smiled, as though dreaming of running along the sand with her newly formed, finally complete family, united not by the past, but by what they had chosen to become together.